Moon Knight coming your way. Hey, everybody, D here, and welcome to our big final discussion of Moon Knight. So excited to dive into this, and just really excited about my guest tonight. I'm going to tell you all, missed this guy so much. I'm glad that he was able to jump into our final discussion. It is, of course, the one, the only Don Willi.
Oh, hey. What's going on, everybody? So glad to be here and discussing such a weird and awesome show. And I guess let's see. You, Rob, take it away.
Let's just jump right into this. Y'all know who I am. If you don't, hi.
Hello. Perfect, everyone. Quick little thoughts. We are talking about our Obi-Wan discussion that comes out on the 27th, so we'll probably be some point of that weekend. Keep an eye on the channel, and I will put out a date when I can confirm everyone's time and availability. And, before we jump into things, I just want to take one brief moment and let everyone know, if there was a question, that we at D's Reviews stand with women, their right to choose, and bodily autonomy. And in fact, we support everybody's bodily autonomy and right to choose. Biologically male, female, whatever gender, whatever race, creed, should be up to you. Shouldn't be determined from down and above. So we got your backs here. Let's kick things off into the show for what we're here to talk about. Don, since this is your first time here and kind of as a perfect ending for this show, what have you thought of Moon Knight? Let's just say in total so far, and then dive into how you thought this finale. Did it give you what you wanted, or how do you feel after the whole wrap up of this story?
So, firstly, we have to get a season 2. If we don't get a season 2, someone at Marvel needs to be fired and then, walked to a very, very long pier and tossed in without a life preserver. So, basically, I really, really liked this entire season. It did get weird at points. There were, some of the Marvelisms that people complain about that I'm just like, look, it's their style, let them do their thing. But overall, fantastic start, and I truly hope that this builds into something greater for the long term. Yeah, so that's it for the time being.
Sorry. So, well, okay, Rob, let's throw these over to you as a longtime Moon Knight fan from the comics, and I know your mind's had a few little adjustments it had to make through the course of their show, trying to equate the two. How did this finale feel for you? There was a lot of ground to cover. They made some real interesting choices. How did you feel about what this finale delivered for your needs and expectations?
It's so weird how we started all this, right? On the first episode, it was like first two episodes, it was like, wow. And then for me, it just started there were things that started happening that just made me worried. And I don't like when I have to see the whole thing to get to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It's anxiety. It just makes my anxiety just go flare up, and it's sometimes it's for no reason. Sometimes, it ends up being like the way certain things go. But this, stepping back, seeing it twice now, I almost didn't need to see it twice, but I needed something to do before this came on. And it was pretty satisfying. I think that as a comic fan, I'm way more relieved. And while they've made a lot of changes, none of them are deal breakers. And now knowing like where we're going, where we can go, I'm way more excited. And we got a new superhero out of the whole thing, and that was great too. That was such a great choice, and all my fears are allayed for future seasons. And like I said, I myself wouldn't have made these choices for the show, but I'm really glad that Oscar Isaac pushed to do this story this way. We got something original, something I hadn't seen, and I needed to just get through the whole thing to be able to finally go, yes, all your weird, interesting choices add up to something really fantastic, which I'm really happy to see how many people have put this at the top of their Disney Plus Marvel list. Because this is the most unique thing they've done since anything previous to Endgame. You know, all the complaints that we have of the Marvel formula, and while this has Marvel formula stuff in it, this is also just one of the most bizarre, weird things that they allowed themselves to do. And I'm really happy in the end. Like, I'm sorry to everyone that had to listen to my anxiety-ridden complaints, but in the end, I said it at the beginning, this is probably the best version of this show we were ever going to get. And realistically, like, they wouldn't just pull all the stories from the 1980 Sienkiewicz run. So hard to say his name. No, I'm super excited, super glad, super satisfied, and while it's not flawless, and there's still some things that make me go, what, see, but in the end, it delivered.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear that. Yeah. To me, it was, there was a lot of stuff that this sort of had to cover. There was a lot of room to it. And I have to say that giant kaiju-god battle atop the Giza Plateau, not in my speculation of where this was going to go. But for Moon Knight, it did feel appropriate. I think that they carried the story out between Mark and Steven very well. I personally love what they did with Layla. I love how Taweret is now this new character in the MCU that also has a brand new hero in the MCU. I know they were calling her the Scarlet Scarab, which I believe did belong to another comics character in the late 70s, killed off in the early 80s. But this is would be a different incarnation and would be the first Egyptian superhero in the MCU. So in many ways, this carried a lot of stuff. And because it was looked on originally as kind of a potential standalone story, it did tell a tale. It did do a beginning, middle, and end, and it did do a setup where they could branch off if they wanted to. So in that sense, I think that they really did accomplish what they were going for. I do have to say the only downside that I've seen to this, and it's just something that Marvel has run into because of the nature of this television formula, is you get your emotional kind of arc in the 5th episode and you get your action arc in the 6th. And oddly, just seeing fly, punch, I don't know, maybe because I've seen so many, it's not quite as exciting, which is, I guess, why you have to build up to giant gods fighting across the pyramids. But hey, they still got it interesting, and again, open the door up for some real interesting stories going forward. So let's dive into some of these, and I'm actually going to start off with Layla here, because I like the fact that what Mark and Stephen were afraid that she was going to do is exactly what she did. She's like, all right, well, gonna jump in, gonna sneak up on Arthur, and I'm gonna just cut his head off or stab him, or it was definitely a secret attack. And give it up to Taweret to keeping her word and reaching out in a really disturbing way to try and get that message, and dealing with an ultra powered hero at the same time. So Don, what did you think of kind of, let's just sort of focus on Layla's little journey of going to kill Arthur, getting stopped, changing her mind, and instead infiltrating to try and free Khonshu?
So I thought it was interesting, the fact that she had so much animosity towards Harold, because um, they never really explained her part in the whole backstory in terms of uh, how she got mixed up with. Uh, well, she didn't know Steven, so yeah, how she got kind of mixed up with Mark. They did say that she's married to him, but it was like, all right, you guys' relationship seems to be kind of strained, and it's just like, what is going on here?
Sure.
How did you guys come to be an item? How did you find out about Harrow?
Well, they did sort of touch on, I think, in the not last one, but one before, where they let her know that, oh, he had gone to her basically to talk about his dad, and that's how they first met. But he didn't tell her that he was involved with the death of her dad. But yeah, I mean, how that eventually led to adventures and marriage and things like that. They
Right.
didn't go into so much, but they did just sort of touch on little bit of why she might be, I don't know, upset that Mark and or Steven just got killed.
Well, yeah, but how did Harold get mixed up in this? Because obviously Steven has no idea what's going on. We spent the first half of the series all through Steven's eyes, and then the
Mhm.
second half was mainly through Mark's eyes until we get to the end where it's both of them together. Um, so I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I loved what they did with Layla. Um, and I see, yes, she wanted to get revenge on Harrow for, killing Mark and all that.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe because they didn't give enough background or something more to gel the two of them together, it just didn't hit me the way that I thought they were intending it to.
Okay.
It kind of seemed a little forced. But I loved her. First off, I loved her outfit, right? I loved her outfit. Yeah, and she has the name of a villain from past Moon Knight issues or whatever. But
Okay.
um, obviously, we know the MCU plays by its own rules, so I'm not surprised that they decided to, for one, gender swap the character, and then also make that character a hero now. I mean, look at Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean,
Sure.
Drax the Destroyer, and yeah, Drax the Destroyer wasn't a good guy for the longest, and also damn, what the hell? I don't know. There's a few other characters that they've like done things with, so I'm not surprised that they did this with Layla. Um, and actually, she's actually a new character now
Yeah.
because she's
Completely.
not from the comic books at all. So, um, I loved when she finally gets her powers or whatever, and she comes out and she pulls out the swords and the wings are on top. Now I'm wondering, where does she learn how to fight though? So like, is that her, or is that the goddess inside of her kind of controlling her a bit and giving her the ability to fight so well? Because listen, she was kicking ass, and I love to see it.
Yeah, the godhood definitely seems to boost that. I think they did establish, I guess, just from the rough and tumble, the fact that she was kind of very adventurous beforehand. I don't know. I automatically assumed she could fight, but that's a good question. Is like, how do you know how to fly and do these things? This just it's part of the avatar gift. You get this little knowledge on what to do there. Um, Now, I did have one question. You guys thought, now, okay, so when Harrow gets the Amit, finally gets the Amit statue, I guess just holding kind of boosts his powers because he doesn't release Ahmed until he gets to until they get to the Great Pyramid and the whole little council chamber there, which I was curious about until I realized, oh, he's got to kill these before he releases them, or they'll just imprison her again, which kind of answered a big question that I had. But he definitely got a little power up before even the release, because now he could start just sucking life out of all the guards around him, which was very cool. But I don't know, nice little power up, I guess, once you get the artifact.
Yeah, I was a little. It took me a minute before I understood fully, like, his whole thing with the powers, because it was kind of like, all right, well, does he have the powers just because he has the staff? Does he not have the power when he doesn't like have the staff in his actual possession? But I guess he does, and yeah. So I don't know. I literally just watched the episode like right before we came on because there were things that I was still like, okay, so wait, maybe I missed it last night, or like, no, this is the same exact thing I remember last night. Nothing has changed about this for me. So yeah, I don't quite understand, but
the head on the staff flipped and changed shape. So
right.
that was the power. Yeah, somehow
it turned from a cane to an axe.
There you go. It did the Thor bit, so now it's the power up version. Rob, what did you think of Layla's, like, I don't know, it wasn't quite suicide mission, but an attempted at, and then, well, unexpectedly interrupted.
I really liked, them showing how she contacted her through the dead bodies. I thought that was really fun. But we did establish that she fights well, maybe definitely not as well as Mark, but I mean, so I would say that she just got, like an amplified thing. And I'm glad that they at least showed her fighting earlier so that it wouldn't feel so like just, unearned, but and yeah, I know she's like really, it's a highly emotional situation, but part of me got a little grating. It got a little grating for me. Just I felt real, I don't know if sanctimonious is the right word. But like, there was just this attitude that I just kind of like have grown tired of. And Steven shows it too. And I think it's just because my love for Mark Spector and what I know he does, and what I've seen him do, and like, I'm all aboard. Like, I've seen him get the vengeance of Khonshu for a bunch of stuff. And, these are characters, though, that I have to understand that they don't understand fully. Like, she doesn't understand Mark's illness. Mm-hmm. She's coming at a lot of this stuff, like, really trying to catch up. So I have to try to remind myself that some of that grating stuff and some of that attitude comes from a place of being like, I've been left out of the loop for so long and frustrated, and now he's dead and I'm the only one standing here. And there was a bit too much there. I think there was a step just a little too far in the I'm going to do it all on my own kind of thing, where it's like you have a God speaking to you through dead bodies, and you're still like, and then in the end, giving into that, and not just out of self-preservation, becoming an avatar, something that she was like, and still going temporary, like, lady, like, you're but all in all, like, the suit was cool. Mm-hmm. I like that she's a brand, like a brand new character for the MCU and not just taking over. Like, that was my worry. That was my worry. And not because she's a girl. It's because Moon Knight is Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, all these people. And I didn't want to just lose that character right off the bat, like, to say goodbye to him immediately. So the fact that they made her into her own character was like, good. We need more new female characters that we can. And I'm glad that they're establishing that here. And while she may be some template off of some other character from a long time ago, just like Arthur Harrow, who cares?
Yeah, yeah. There's
Great,
no
good.
Arthur Harrow fans that are like, "You changed my guy."
Yeah, and the fact that she's like Egyptian, which is unique, and gets to have that moment with the little girl, see like kind of a Kamala Khan kind of situation of seeing the heroes and looking up to that and saying if there's she can do something, maybe I can too. I don't know, but overall I liked it. And yeah, I mean I'm kind of with Silva on the whole I wish it was Marlene thing, and I wish that things were more 616, but there's a time where I just, if it's good and not just objectively good like I've been saying, and I have to like kind of tone my own expectations down and still go, this is way better than it could have been. As far as her character goes, her character could have gone full on some of the things that we've seen before where it just really forced, and instead they went and did some really interesting things with it. To me, am I 100% satisfied? No, but what if you're 100% satisfied? There's no room for growth, and in this we have more questions. We have room to grow with this character and where she's going to be next. Will she give it up? Something tells me it's going to be real tempting to keep that avatar, and maybe I will get a little "I told you so" from maybe I would love to see Steven say "I told you so." This is pretty great, right? I get to be the guy. I get to be the guy in the cool mask. Maybe they'll all get over themselves and have fun being superheroes instead of complaining about it. But yeah.
Well, I think definitely her boss is a little nicer than Khonshu seemed to be. So, I think just that working relationship and Guy might kind of change things up. And I kind of
love might want to see her dad.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, there was kind of some cool little bits there. One, the fact that Khonshu was like, "So, will you be my avatar?" She's like, "Are you out of your mind? You drove Mark insane. You ruined his life." I mean, it was just such a great rebuke to what the constant kind of, "I'm going to go after your girlfriend if you try to kick me out," that was sort of played ahead of time. And obviously, it kind of takes a whole interesting redirect by the end that we have. But I liked how he had that switch where it was like, "No, you suck. But hey, now I have somebody who doesn't seem to suck. And yeah, obviously is like, oh, I can't wait to tell your dad. He'll be so excited." Which, okay, a little cheesy. I mean, it's Marvel. They got to lean into that a little bit. They are still making a little bit kind of, all ages appeal to this. But you're right. There's a lot of bad choices they could have made. And it's difficult sometimes to judge a show, especially when it's connected to source material we love, for what it brings and not for what it doesn't do that we want it to do, because that's a real interesting kind of you can't blame a show for not doing your headcanon. It can only do what it is. And I do know that the director, Mohammed Diab, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that, one of the things that he really was excited about this was being able to create a new character, an Egyptian. He's Egyptian. Telling the story from that point of view, I think, was important. And now having this character that can sort of step out of the MCU and doesn't really have anything tying it down is great. And the shows seem to be a way that Marvel is starting to do this, of introducing these smaller characters that can then come together into movies or step into that and now start to play larger roles in larger films. So, yeah. And the fact that we still get to keep Moon Knight and have this other character, I think, was really the knockout of the park that they needed to do. All right, so we do get a little preview of our God battle inside the room. We have our first little Amit versus Khonshu. And I did want to take a moment to see what you guys thought about Harrow in this, because I've really enjoyed Ethan Hawke's presentation of this villain, and the fact that he sits down and he's like, "Oh, my scale's unbalanced. I accept the judgment. Toss me out." No, really. I thought that this would all work out, but I'm committed and I've got a whole legion of followers for you. You don't often get a villain that is ready to like step aside. And again, it was just one of those, even though we still had to get the big fight hand to hand, beat them up at the end, which is requisite, I did like this unexpected direction of this character who really had just completed his job. He was happy stepping away. He'd done what he needed to do. What did you guys get a take on this? Rob, let's start with you. What was your take on Harrow's whole little bit here of releasing the god and willing to give it up?
Oh, I'm not. Well, we'll talk more about like definitely the whole thing, but like his performance just continues to just. I mean, between him and Oscar, it's just so cool to see two A-list actors get to have this kind of fun and still be the good actors that they are, and elevate, you know, some really bizarre material. You know, this is a pretty bizarre guy.
Yeah,
you know, and with his backstory and everything, and it's the move is always to suddenly betray like the other villain, like, you know, like he would try to just take Ahmet's place. He'd be like, I'm better than you failed me, everyone fails me, and I'm just gonna take your power and trap you in the staff and whatever, you know, and you can't do anything about it. And then he, like, you know, he gets drunk and he goes too far and he
sure,
blah blah blah. Instead they go the complete opposite way, which is a complete subversion of expectations. And again, that's how you do it. That's how you do this, man. You take the cliche, you flip it on its head, and you get this guy give a great performance of complete earnest. I'm done. Go ahead and take me out. He's given up. They push so close in on him, and his sincerity is, it's, you know, he's not bullshitting. And in this ridiculous situation, when you look outside of it, it's rare to have a performance that's that believable in such a crazy out there situation. And he never fails in this entire thing. In fact, this is his whole performance. If you look at all the different scenes he has as Harrow, as psychiatrist, as the guy at the end, that is 3 different kinds of sides of that guy's personality in one episode. And we keep talking about how great Oscar is at balancing all this, but Ethan has had to play different versions of this guy too.
True.
And they've played the villain and, in a way, the hero, the support system, the things that Oscar needed, you know, Mark and Steven and needed to hear. So it's like, it elevates this again. And they always talk about, and maybe less and less so now, about the lack of Marvel villains. And I think that's always been kind of unfair. But every time we get like somebody like this, it's just he's going to be up at the top of the list as well. And it's a shame that, you know, I'm sometimes a character like needs to go. It doesn't not, and I've said in the past that they always kill the villains, but sometimes a villain does need to go. And when you're going to get a villain to go out, this is the perfect character to take out. And how it happens, well, we'll get to that. So this was just really, really cool.
Awesome. Don, what about you? What is your thought of what Ethan Hawke has brought to this, and then especially that kind of whole thing? I mean, he finishes his arc, he gets what he wants to do, and then what do you think?
You know, I really love Christian Slater. I mean, Ethan Hawke. Let me stop. That's not fair. No, Ethan Hawke did a phenomenal job. You know, because I'm not as familiar with Moon Knight as you guys are, but even if I had never watched any Marvel anything before, Ethan Hawke was captivating for his run, you know. And again, when we got to the whole thing where it kind of switched, where he was, you know, being the psychiatrist as opposed to him being Harrow. Listen, if I was Mark or Steven, I would have been questioning what's real too. You know, he did a phenomenal job with showing someone who was a tortured soul and had this mission, and nothing was going to stop him. And when he, felt as though he wasn't worthy of the mission, it was like, hey, you know what? I built this up for the thing that I believe in, and I'm willing to die for my beliefs. And that was the thing for me that was like, okay, you got to respect that because of the fact that, you know, that's not something that most villains would do. Just like you guys said, most villains would be like, oh, wait, you're imprisoned in this little statue here. You can't get out without my help. You can't do anything with, like, I have your power and you can do nothing. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to keep you in this little statue and just, or wear the statue around my neck just to, remind everybody I have a god imprisoned on my neck.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, let you out in here. How can I serve thee? And honestly speaking, the only other villain that I can think of that was the main villain but also was the sidekick was Darth Vader. Like, what other main villain do you know that was also the sidekick as well? And willingly.
Well,
so again,
I think even Vader, though, ultimately wanted to overthrow the Emperor. But you're right. But yeah, there are very few that you actually have are the true believers, and I think that was the great thing. I mean, much like Stanley was true believers, that was the strength of, I think, him as that villain, as that commitment to. I'm not selfish about it. I just believe in a world that's a little different, or a lot different from everyone else.
Listen, that whole thing where he says to Khonshu, where he says to Khonshu, I owe my victory to you at the end of episode 5, I was just like, wow. Like, that is one of the lines I will never forget for the rest of my life. Like, I want to make sure to memorize the other part of it, but it was just kind of like, I owe my victory to you. Because to say that to someone who's your enemy, that to me is the most the kind of I don't know, not it's one of the most kind of twisted things that you can have in your head. Like, yes, your enemy might be your motivation to win, but say, like, yeah, like, I owe my victory to you. Like, I couldn't have been the person I am to build this without my hatred of you. Like, that to me is deep.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that the Kingpin would say to Daredevil.
Yeah. That's some dark shit right there, indeed.
And think about it. He, this is a guy who had people willing to follow him all over the world just based on how, hey, I got this little scale thing tattooed on my arm, and if your scales are balanced, then you have, a god who is waiting for you to serve her. And hey, and if your scales aren't balanced, then you go into the grave, and you can talk about it with one of the gods of the afterlife.
Sure.
So, but the one thing that kind of got me, and I guess we'll talk about it later, is I guess the switch. I guess when you realize that the doctor was real, but not real at the same time. So like I said,
that's all the crazy mind stuff. Yeah, and I do want to save time to take a little bit of that. So real quick, the whole Mark. Well, actually, let me jump into chat right now because I do want to acknowledge we got some great people in. Silver Surfer, as always, in here with us. The Rich Room, Doc Moore, Eric Scott is in as well. And a good lot of feedback from the show.
Hello,
Doc
everyone.
Moore. Sorry. Doc, for instance, didn't know anything about Moon Knight, so couldn't be annoyed by any deviations from character. Rich Room admittedly that Khonshu did stay an a-hole throughout the entire show. No redemption at all. He was committed. He was committed. Silva liked Khonshu. Yeah.
He's cold-blooded.
He's cold-blooded, yeah. Dick like young Odin was, according to Silva here. So yeah. Also, Rich mentioning Hera was a committed person and villain, and he actually did somewhat succeed, since released Amit, and a lot of people did die by Amit's judgment. So, yeah, some great responses, mostly to the to the finale, though. I think Silva, again, not quite as much on board as everyone else. We do have a brief scene, which thankfully they didn't spend too much time on, which basically Mark retrieving Steven from the Duat, giving up the reeds, having that nice, I need you, you need me, we need to be together before being saved. I'm assuming by Osiris, since Taweret mentions, calls him an old softy, and his Avatar at this point is dead, and people are dying left and right because Amit's been released. So, a good move on his part. But any thoughts from either of you on the just the little Mark Steven bonding moment, which did lead to, of course, kind of a new deal with Khonshu?
I just thought it was nice to see them confirm the balance that these guys have, and the connection that they have, and admitting to each, like him going back for Steven, when Steven at one point, was trying actively to get rid of Mark permanently. Here's Steven, Mark going back for him, like he's free and clear, and in reality, Steven doesn't exist, but he's part of Mark.
Yeah,
it's like losing a limb, and for Mark it's even more. And I really liked that, because again, those were things I was concerned about throughout this thing, was that fighting, that bickering, that just constant barrage of attack each other, like nobody really understands one another. And for Steven, I wish that they had held on it where Steven came out of it before Mark, so that Steven could see that Mark, to be able to dwell on that for a couple of beats, that Mark came back for me when I was willing to throw him away. And that just, they're one and the same, but they're different. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked that moment a lot.
Cool. Don, any thoughts on our rebonding of our two sides?
So honestly speaking, I thought they were going to kiss. Like, I was like, okay, they're about to have them kiss, aren't they? That's what it looks like it's going. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, they didn't have them kiss, all right, but that's what it looked like. It was leaning for a moment there.
They have a love, just a different kind of love.
Yeah. So, look, I'm glad that the two of them getting along. They finally have an understanding with each other, and thought they had an understanding with Khonshu. We'll get to that, obviously. But yeah, this was definitely something. It was way different than anything I think we've ever seen in any Marvel movie. Yes, we have seen people go to bat for each other, but never in this way. Like, think about it. As much as anyone wanted to, they could not save Gamora from the afterlife after Thanos killed her to get the Soul Stone.
Right.
So to see Mark go back for essentially what was a coping mechanism, because and I forget what the hippo guy's name was,
Taweret.
but yeah, thank you. She told him, hey, you don't need Steven anymore. Because after the last episode, we got great insight as to how Steven came to be in the first place. That whole coping mechanism that he used, which helped to kind of save Mark's sanity to a certain extent. Yeah, it was just I like that they did something, kind of so spiritual, for lack of a better term, because here we have someone who, when it came down to it, he had a chance to A, be at peace for eternity, and B, finally stand on his own after all this time. And he was like, no, he gave that up to go back to rescue another part of himself that he didn't necessarily know that he needed until he didn't have him anymore. And that was the thing that was really kind of touching for me, because like at the end of episode 5, I was sitting there with my jaw like hitting the floor, going through the floor to the basement, and then hitting the basement floor. And I was like, oh my God, we've been following Steven this entire time, and you guys just killed him. Like Mark is already in the afterlife, but you put Steven in the part of the afterlife where they say you go there and no one comes back.
Yeah.
So, to see Mark say, no, you know what? I don't accept that I get to spend eternity at peace. And the part of me that kept me sane, the part of me that kept me having some sort of morality, the part of me that, stuck to a routine and, was a out and out good person. Like, how does that part of me get left behind? And yet here I am. I'm a mercenary. I'm, to I guess a certain extent a religious fanatic, maybe. There are so many things about Mark that are not necessarily redeemable. It's not He may not be the worst person, but he definitely is not your stereotypical person that you would think of as a hero. So, this was probably the most heroic thing that he's ever done, was to save to save himself. Wow, how is saving yourself literally the most heroic thing you've ever done? That's crazy.
Well, I guess that when you're able to put it as really the different aspects of yourself, yeah. Do you save one person, try and push away the all, or do you have to save all of you to be you? I mean, you're right. It does become a very philosophical, spiritual question they sort of grapple with at the end. And I think that's what, right, gives it its power. Less so, but to a certain extent, making a deal back with the god to be its avatar so you can have a giant final fight on the plateau of Giza amongst the Great Pyramid. Which I do want to kind of jump on. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, and there's a couple of things I do want to hit. So I do want to hit okay, look, of all the places you're going to go, there's going to be Moon Knight powered back up. You're going to have Moon Knight versus Herald. You got to have the punch out. They did that super powered fight. Fine. Just again, ahead of time, who was planning on giant god fight amongst the pyramids? Wasn't on my book. Did you just totally buy it? Did you see, oh my God, where are they going with this? What was your kind of thought on kind of our big final fight sequence?
Well, it's definitely better than a beam in the sky.
That is way true. That is way true.
It's a big giant fight, and it's like, I don't know. Instead of talking about that, I want to just say like what we were talking about with how the action is just kind of like we've seen it and done it, it's fine and it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and after seeing it as a whole, I think one of the reasons for me the impact of the action is lessened is because this isn't an action show. This is a cerebral show. And so the action kind of feels like off. If this show had started out completely just like if the beginning was him beating the hell out of that jackal as Moon Knight, and we set up that we're coming in for a fight because there was action in that first episode, but we right off the bat you could tell that this was something different, and the more cerebral it got, and the more into your someone's head it got, that any kind of fighting actually felt out of place because it just it wasn't about that. And it just because of the obligatory thing that we have to give everybody, we have to have the great big fight and the resolution of that fight. That might have been one of the reasons why it felt like that. Because in the end, like I said, I would have loved to have this just be a nonstop drag out fight, but what they gave us, this unique thing, made the action a little more or less impactful. And I'm about that. That's fine.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting shift on storytelling that it gives them. Don, any thoughts on our big kind of giant kaiju fight or the hand-to-hand? I mean, any of the stuff there, really, just in our final fight sequence. So we have time to talk about our post-credit stuff.
Okay, so as far as the final fights, for one, I'd like to talk about Moon Knight and Mr. Knight versus Harrow, because that was beyond awesome. The whole switching back and forth. Now, if they could have found a way, like, I don't know, maybe if it just wasn't in the budget, or maybe no one thought about it, or they couldn't get the CGI to work correctly or something. But if they could have found a way to, like, literally have him switch from one persona to the next mid-movement, oh, that would have been so amazing.
Season two, yeah.
But I still loved the fact, like, when he's doing the gauntlet with the batons, right, and he throws the one at Harrow deflects it back, and then when it gets back, it's Moon Knight. Then they have a nice little knockdown, drag out kind of brawl thing. Harrow throws Mr. Knight, and then you get the grappling hook, and then out comes Moon Knight. They're flying off of the pyramid of Giza, and in the middle of them, in mid-flight, he changes from one to the next. So yeah, that to me, I loved it, and thought that it was an awesome action sequence. And honestly speaking, to me, rivaling Daredevil in terms of maybe not fight choreography, because I don't think that you ever. It's very hard to top those Daredevil hallway fights. Very, very hard to top those. But I think for the kind of superhero show that this is, with the many comparisons that people have made about Moon Knight to Batman, I still don't think I've seen a Batman fight this good. I as good as Batman fights have gotten over the past 10 or more years, I still don't think I've seen a Batman fight that's been this good. So,
that's a fair.
I think they did a phenomenal job in terms of that. And as far as Khonshu versus Ahmet is concerned, all right, it was interesting for me because it almost seemed as though for a minute when Khonshu would win, Moon Knight would win, right? Or
right
when he had the upper hand, Moon Knight had the upper hand. But then definitely towards the end of the fight, Ahmet had Khonshu down for the count, and Moon Knight actually had Harrow down for the count. So I was kind of like, okay, so their fights are not necessarily connected. But then the next thing you know, you see Harrow get the upper hand on Moon Knight the same way that that Ahmed had the upper hand on Khonshu. So I'm like, okay, maybe it takes a second for the power to transfer over fully. I'm kind of lost here.
They feed back and forth with each other, maybe.
Yeah. So the ebb and flow for that, I'm not sure what the if there was supposed to be some sort of representative visual storytelling with that or not, because again, at first to me it looked as though when the god was winning, the avatar would be winning as well, until, like I said, that one part where it was like, wait, no, Moon Knight definitely had just handed Harrow his ass, but yet Khonshu is on the ground looking. So, yeah, I was kind of lost there for a moment.
Sure. Well, I gotta say, I like how ultimately they make the choice of dealing with this is not by killing Harrow, but by re-imprisoning Amit into him. That of Mark seeing that, hey, we're about to do what she does, and we're going after her for doing that we're saying is bad, but we're going to do the same thing. By doing the same thing for different reasons, is that really a difference? And of course, because I like villains surviving to do future editions, I like the fact when our heroes are not killing our villains at the rate that they did in some of the early MCU films. But we definitely have a turnabout that totally plays into our after credits scene, which is being saved by Jake Lockley, which I think was just an interesting choice to do. Like you said, Moon Knight's down, Khonshu's down, Amit's going in for the kill, Harrow's going in for the kill. Dr. Harrow last week made an interesting statement to Stephen. He asked him, did you make Stephen to protect you from to be the positive child life that you couldn't have? Or did Stephen create you to lash out at the world for the injustices that you brought, for being beaten by your mom and stuff? Again, I'm paraphrasing. And I think he was right, only it wasn't Stephen that was created to lash out. It's Jake. I think Jake is the dark side of Mark, much like Stephen is the light side of him. And we had theorized that Jake comes out to protect both of them, and that's sort of what actually happens at the end. And they don't save us, and that's kind of a deus ex machina, which I don't generally like. Like, no, we're win. I know it looked bad, but we're okay. We won. But it's nice that they kind of pay that off at the end. Again, in that really interesting and dark scene of wheeling Harrow out. So what did you guys think of the way that Jake was kind of introduced? Like, sort of, but not. And then, yes, I know we had a lot of expectations of when he was going to come in, but I don't know. I got to say, ultimately, I kind of like what they did. Don, let's start with you.
Well, I definitely, like, the clues were there, right? So the clues that there was a third person were there, because it's mentioned throughout, like, oh well, about multiple personalities. We saw at first the whole thing with Stephen kind of blanking out, coming back, and then everybody is beat up around him. But we definitely got the clue when we saw Stephen turn into Mark, and then Mark kind of blanked out for a moment, and it went right back to Stephen. But the way that they did it the first time, it didn't look as though it was like that was the case. It
Right.
looked at first as though it was just Steven turned into Mark, and then when he flashed back, it was is when everything happened. So, Silver is funny. He said Jake was the best part of this episode, all 5 seconds of it. Oh my god, hilarious! But the thing for me when it comes to the introduction of Jake Lockley, I'm sorry, but there's no way that this is not getting a season 2. Because to leave it on that kind of cliffhanger, where you're introducing a guy with a third accent now, right? Hablas de español. We don't know whether or not he speaks English, right? And because I know that they have changed up the way that they've done this from the comic book. Like, I know the thing that I do know about Moon Knight in the comic books, Mark Spector is the mercenary persona. Stephen Grant is the billionaire playboy, kind of Bruce Wayne kind of persona, and then Jake Lockley is supposed to be, more. No, Daredevil would be wrong, but he's more of a street level. This is because he's a cab driver,
right?
So to see this now, with the whole thing of the third personality that the first two don't even know about, that it was only kind of suspected on their end when they saw the third sarcophagus that was closed in the mental hospital. Right. That was the thing that for me was like, all right, well, okay, you got to pay this off. You can't just introduce this new element, and yes, the element was already there, but you can't now confirm that element's existence and then say, okay, did you like the story? All right, hope you have fun there. that was great, wasn't it? I know that big payoff at the end where you finally learn, yeah, there is the third man, right? It was like when the Hogan shows up to be part of the NWO. But yeah, other than that, again, you can't leave it like that. There has to be a season 2. How does Jake differ even from Mark? Because Mark was willing to hurt people as Moon Knight. He has actually killed people as Moon Knight, but even he had a line where it seems like Jake doesn't have that same line that he won't cross. So we need to see, does he have a different suit? Does his Moon Knight personality have a different suit? Is he even called Moon Knight as that different personality? Is there gonna be some sort of run-in with Mark and Steven while he's asleep? There are so many questions that need to be answered now that were raised by this revelation. So there absolutely has to be a season 2, or else Disney Plus is canceled. Canceled.
I love how committed to your viewpoints you are, Don. I can't disagree with you. Rob, what did you think of Lockley? I know you've been waiting to see this guy. So what did you think of how they really kind of actually, I don't know, confirmed his existence, but not, and then did?
I mean, I'm gonna be that person because I did call it. I called it. I said it. The last fucking thing in the post credits. Then they're gonna just go boop. Here he is. But this time I did catch the accent drop in the doctor's office when he's like, right before Steven says his last line, there's a line that is not Mark and not Steven. So he speaks English. He's kind of got a little bit of an accent like that, like kind of a Bronxy type, like New York kind of accent. Mm-hmm. But then he also speaks Spanish. I think the guy's just, I think the most interesting thing is, where did Mark find this character? What movie did he watch? Like, what weird little VHS tape did he get this one off of? You know, like, what crazy character? What villain? Is it the villain from that movie that they watch? I don't know. All I know is that the first off, like I said, Kanchu had like, oh yeah, sure, I'll let you go. Like, oh, I love it, because it's just, he is like the Kanchu in the books. It just is kind of like the condescending guy with a plan god. Like, he considers all these people still like worms and messing with Mark in the books. And all this tracks, but this ending, this wasn't just like, this was like the way a good thriller ends. This is like the end of The Usual Suspects. This is like that moment at the end of To Die For with Nicole Kidman, where all of a sudden, you know, she thinks she's getting spoilers. It's an old movie. Watch it. Where she thinks, you know, this character who's done some terrible things is like gonna just walk away into the night, and Buck Henry shows up and nope, things are about to go really bad for you. And I love that. I love the character getting thrown in there, feeling like he must have gotten messed up, right? That axe went in, right? So but he still remembers who they are, and he still thinks he's untouchable. And just that moment of like, yeah, no, not really, not so much. And I mean, just the turnaround in the shots, and it's just, that is it. And it not, I don't want to say Godfather, because that's just way too big, but like, it is that just big surprise, like, haha, you know, like I made a separate deal with Jake Lockley that no one knows about. And that's the shit that just really made me smile so much, because it just, again, that's not Marvel to do that. Not like this. Not like, you know, all of a sudden there's a hitman in the front seat. That just really rocked. That rocked so hard.
And we've got a new post-credit trope, because we ended Hawkeye with Kingpin getting shot in the face, and now we are ending Moon Knight with Harrow getting shot in the face. Both kind of post-credit scenes there. So I don't know. What was it? The second movie, the second show, the second season was always the arm getting chopped off as our homage to Empire Strikes Back. Now the next new thing is going to be post-credit shots to the face.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I think they got to do it sparingly. Again, you got to save some of the villains going forward. In the chat, definitely a lot of agreement that we've got to have a second season. Also mentions that maybe it's not a second season, but it could be perhaps a Midnight Suns. You get Black Knight, Blade, Ghost Rider together. Of course, as AOS, we want Robbie Reyes back. Would be awesome. And that's totally the thing. And to me, that is one of the stuff for fans that didn't necessarily get what they wanted out of the Moon Knight. The one thing that we have found with Marvel is new seasons, new directors, new showrunners, sometimes new interpretations. You can get different versions of the character. I mean, Thor was one, and then Taika Waititi came in, and we had Ragnarok, and now Thor is a very different type of character, where you're starting to see these different versions that you can get depending on who's going to be running a Midnight Suns if they do that. Or, you know, does Mahood Deeb come back for season 2? He certainly wants to. They might go somewhere else, or he might be like, you know, now that we established things, I'd like to do the little craziness, random bullshit go that some, you know, Moon Knight fans really want to see. So, I mean, if you didn't get what you wanted out of this show, I think there's still a chance that in future incarnations you will. And I think with the feedback this got, it's definitely showing Oscar Isaac, hey, not all fandoms suck, okay? Not all IPs are going to lock you into something that's not going to deliver on the promise, you know? And I understand a bit of hesitation, but I think given what they were able to do with this show, I think they're going to be able to come up with a deal. I think they could probably figure that out. Um, and I did find interesting at the end, yeah. He breaks the deal and he wakes up in London. No Layla, no country. How did he get back? What happened there? I think it's all fertile grounds of where we could go with our Jake Lockley future. So I think that kind of covers anything. Is there any stuff that anybody wants to go into or questions to ask or expectations on what we want to see going on or final thoughts? I'll just throw that out right now.
Not really. I mean, I think that it'd be interesting to answer. Like they've got to wonder now, like why is this bed set up the way it's set up? You know, like was it always? You know, he's thinking it's probably for between him and Steven when it's probably more likely that whatever is going on there has to do with Jake.
Sure. There are two fishes in the tank now, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's been a blackout. Maybe this is like, you know, him saying, you know, you guys are together and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. Yeah. I think we've done this was like the most fun I think I've had in a while talking about stuff. And that's all I really want to say. This was a great series of episodes that we put together, and we had a lot of fun. And I can't wait to do this on other stuff still.
Yeah, no. I really appreciate you guys coming in, and I love getting everybody's different point of view, whether it's from the new fans, from people that have known it, like yourself, Rob, for a long period of time. We of course have an awesome chat, and yeah, it's a show that not only gives you some fun action and such, but also even asks you the questions, even up to the end: is this real, or is this all in his head, or is this happening in an intermediate space between reality and not? And I like the fact that they had the freedom to be able to tell that kind of story without tying it in necessarily to the MCU. Is it a Marvel? Of course it is. Do you have to have Captain America walk past the screen in order for that to be a Marvel property, or somebody to mention the Battle of New York? Or I'm not calling it the Snapping. Snapping's so much of a better name. Come on. Don, what about yourself? Any final thoughts? And do you think this was all in Mark's head, or did this really happen?
Honestly speaking, you know, that last scene before the post credits kind of, I'm still trying to digest that to a certain extent, because I'm like, which of this was actually real? Like when they're sitting there in the office and Harold walks over and you see the blood, and at first Harold doesn't even understand what's going on, and it's like, oh, okay, what part of this is real and what's not? So yeah, I'm gonna be up all night watching explainer videos trying to figure that out, because yeah, I'm still lost on that part. And if it wasn't for the post credit scene, I'd just be like, you know what? Nope. As much as I wanted to love the show, gotta let it go. So the post credit scene actually saved the episode and ultimately the series for me, because without that, I would just be like, you know what? Nope.
That's fair. I think it's good for a show to leave questions, certain questions in your head, but you shouldn't be questioning whether or not this whole thing existed. I believe we were mentioning another show last week that disappointed a lot of us. Anyway, we don't need to go in further with that. Though there was one last little bit that was kind of interesting. When they leave that little final bit with Harrow saying, was it Stephen mentions, I think, but let's go, I'd rather go save the world. Later, Gators, and falls back out of frame to wake up in the bed. Go save the world? You already kind of did that, didn't you? Why do you need to do it again? I mean, you're no longer Moon Knight, right? Though, of course, Lockley still is. So to me, it was kind of an interesting little bit in tying at the post credits, is that he still kind of commits to being a hero, or that's what he'd rather do, even if he had just, in a way, gave up his hero-dom. was just kind of an interesting place to leave that too. But that's all. I like to leave things with questions out there as well. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this whole sequence of reviews, for always being in the chat. Doc Moore, Silver Surfer, Eric Scott in here earlier, of course, The Rich Room. And you guys have a hell of a chat, too. Definitely, if you're watching, go through and watch this chat discussion. They've always got so much fun stuff going on in there. Want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you for watching in the archives who weren't watching live. And of course, like, subscribe, hit the notifications, let you know when we have new reviews going off. We'll be off for a couple of weeks, and we'll be back with Obi-Wan Kenobi at the end of the month. But everyone else, where can people find you? Don, let's start with you. We've got some new shows coming up.
Yes. You can find me here on YouTube at A Dawn of Ice and Fire. And yeah, House of the Dragon coming in August. So look out for House of the Dragon content from myself and most likely these guys as well, to a certain extent. Yeah, and if not there, you can find me on Twitter at Don Willi. That is IDONWILLI. And when I'm not there, you can find me here with these guys discussing Marvel, DC, Star Wars, maybe Star Trek every now and then or something. Things, stuff, all of it. Do it.
I am excited about Strange New Worlds, which I think is out tonight. So we may go end up watching that after this. Rob, what are you doing? Where can people find you?
Well, I'm here most of the time. So you can find me on my channel, Smirking Reviews, occasionally making something. Otherwise, this is, like you said at the beginning, and it's important to bring up that, what's going on right now. We got to stand with our ladies, everybody. We as the men, we have a responsibility to stand by our women and make sure that people don't get to put ladies back all the way to the Stone Age and start treating them like they don't matter and that only guys matter, and it's a load of crap. And we got to get out there and change things from within, because it doesn't feel like anybody else is gonna, like I always say, nobody's coming to rescue us. We got to do it ourselves. Always got to do it ourselves, folks, which means we got to get out there and change things on our own. So let's back up and support the women as much as we can.
Well said. Well said. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your month. We will see you at the end with Obi-Wan